Castle Rock State Park is a relatively new park. I say relatively in the sense that it hasn't been around like as long as Big Basin. What you're looking at up here is a mixed evergreen forest. There's Doug fir over there. The trees without any leaves are black oak. We have some madrone over here. And as we go along, we'll point out some other things. You're up at about 3,000 feet. Because of that, several things happen. In the wintertime, we get snow. In the summertime, it gets hotter. Spring comes a little bit later. This is called tan oak. It's not a true oak. It has some significance historically because in the Santa Cruz Mountains in the late 19th century, there was a number of tanneries because a lot of, they didn't have the synthetics that we have today, obviously, so a lot of leather was used. And to make tan hides, they would take the bark off of this tree because it's high in tannic acid and use it to tan hides. Tan oak is not commercially usable, but there's a lot of parents that still like to tan hides. Over there, there's a stump of a Douglas fir that's rotting away. But here's a Douglas fir that was cut down. You can probably tell by looking at it, it's alive. It was originally all cut down flat, and it's still alive, just like that one over there, because there's an interconnection with the root system underneath. Now, that's sort of unusual with Douglas fir. It wouldn't be unusual with coast redwood, but it is unusual with Douglas firs. And the main reason I stopped here was to point out Castle Rock. Castle Rock is a favorite spot for people to come to, and a lot of people ask me, well, what are all these holes? Does anybody ever hear of the word tuphony? Anybody hear of geology? It's a geologic term. The formation is of a sandstone. It's about 40 to 60 million years old, and it was formed on the bottom of the ocean, and it was uplifted and became exposed to the elements. These rocks get thoroughly saturated in the wintertime. The theory is, in the summertime, the water will wick to the outer edge of the rock because it's going to evaporate. And when it does that, these hardening compounds that hold the sand grains together migrate slightly every time with that water as it migrates to the outer edge. The outer edge of these rocks become very hard. The softer interior is exposed to the outer elements. And you get this, what's referred to as a differential erosion. You get this sudden, fast erosion, and the interior is very, very soft, and it's friable, it falls apart easily, and then you get these odd-looking holes. And you get this, what's called fretworks. Those are those little holes up there. This is the upper end of Kings Creek, which flows into the San Lorenzo River. It flows all year long here because of springs up above here. Castle Rock is slowly changing from a mixed evergreen forest to almost a pure stand of, at least on the higher elevations, of Douglas fir, which would be an evergreen forest. I stopped here because we have two very interesting trees. Because it's this high up, it was subject to fires up here, but it really wasn't subject to very much in terms of logging. So a lot of the bigger trees, there's still a lot of big trees up here, like this Doug fir over here, that never got cut down. Most of this Douglas fir that you see here is fairly young, probably because it all came back after the fire about 80 years ago, and it's creating a Douglas fir forest. Well, you've probably noticed that we've come into a different vegetation type. We're now in chaparral. Does anybody know what chaparral means? I'm told that it's a Spanish word that means literally brush you cannot ride a horse through, which makes sense. I wanted to point out a couple of things about the view so that you understand a little bit about what you're seeing. That big long mountain out there, that's the Ben Lomond Mountain, or sometimes called the Empire Grade. And at the end of it is where Lockheed is. There was a Lockheed fire last year, if you remember. Over there, if you look real carefully, and you'll have other chances to see this, you'll get to see the Monterey Bay, where Pacific Grove is. Now keep in mind, that's the ocean. Am I pointing west or am I pointing south? South. Exactly. A lot of people think, oh, if it's the ocean, it's got to be to the west. No, sir. No, ma'am.